Srila Prabhupada Lilamrta, Volume 6, Uniting Two Worlds, Around the World / Return to Vrindavan, 1975 to 1977. A biography of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, founder Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, by Sattvarup Das Goswami. Chapter 7, Chant, Hare Krishna, and Fight, Part 1. Bombay, January 9th, 1977. Srila Prabhupada started his morning walk before dawn. He and the devotees knew their way well through Hare Krishna land to the public road, and once off the property they turned left, then right, and began walking down the block leading to the beach. The sky began to lighten. At first, they could not visibly distinguish land from seance. They could not visibly distinguish land from sea from sky. But gradually, subtle nuances of color revealed the horizon, and they could see the vast plain of the Arabian Sea stretching to meet the even greater sea of sky, where last stars twinkled and faded. As Prabhupada and his small group walked along the broad beach, they were flanked on their left by a line of leaning palms and on their right by a rumbling surf. Srila Prabhupada wore a gray woolen chadar around his shoulders, a saffron silk kurta and dhoti, and peach-colored canvas shoes. He used a cane, leaning not heavily on it, but lightly. With each brisk step, he would point the cane ahead, poking it into the sand and lifting it again, rhythmically marking the pace. He walked erectly and held his head high. A long line of Bombayites, many of them wealthy Juhu residents on their morning stroll, appeared, and a few coconut wallas set up their carts, cutting off the tops of choice coconuts in anticipation of their first customers. Srila Prabhupada liked to walk at this time of morning, and, weather permitting, he would do so no matter where he was in the world. Juhu Beach, however, was one of his favorite places to walk. Along the way, he and his disciples were joined by Dr. Patel in white shirt and pants, and several of his friends, mostly doctors and lawyers. Srila Prabhupada had been silent, but now he began to speak. "How everything is nice," Srila Prabhupada commented, gesturing toward the beach before him. "See the sky, how clear and how nice by Krishna. Purnam idam." With his cane, he indicated the tall, graceful palm trees. "The tree is called Vriksha," he said. "The Vriksha Yoni, or birth as a tree, is condemned. By Krishna's arrangement, however, the Vrikshas are also so nicely set up, it becomes beautiful." "They are all representatives of Krishna," said Dr. Patel. "This is perfect." "Purnam," said Srila Prabhupada, quoting Ishopanishad. "Purnamidam Purnamadaha." Just as the rising sun illumines everything, Srila Prabhupada discoursed, speaking against the atheistic notion that the complex material creation has no creator. God's creation, said Prabhupada, is perfect and complete, because it comes from Him who is Purnam, perfect and complete. Andantarasta paramanu chayantarastam Govindam Aripurusham Tamahang Bhajami. Paramanu means smaller than the atom. 6 paramanus make 1 anu. That is, atomic dimension. You combine 6 paramanus, so in that paramanu also the Lord is there. He made it, said Dr. Patel, and then he entered into it. That is what the Veda says. Yes, said Prabhupada, the Paramatma is there. The whole human life, is meant for understanding all this and glorifying the Lord. And they are wasting their lives by imitating the hog. Prabhupada again fell silent except for softly uttering the Hare Krishna mantra. Now the beach was light, and many people out on their morning walks or runs greeted Srila Prabhupada as they passed. The greetings were always words of respect, or at least, good morning, and Srila Prabhupada's response was usually Hare Krishna. Suddenly, Prabhupada again began to speak. There's a very big conspiracy against us. By the church? Guessed Dr. Patel. Not by the church, said Prabhupada. By the society? Prabhupada uttered a thoughtful then added, now they are determined to cut down this movement. He didn't give any details, and neither Dr. Patel nor the others could fully draw out what was on his mind. Whatever it was, said Dr. Patel, no conspiracy against Krishna consciousness could take place in India. I wanted to start this movement in India, Prabhupada replied. I requested so many friends. Give me just one son, but nobody agreed. They said, Swamiji, what will be the benefit by this if I make my son a Vaishnava or a Brahmin? They do not give much importance to the movement. They are planning how to stop this movement in so many ways. Always a faithful Indophile, Dr. Patel replied. The Americans are like that, always making propaganda. There is good and bad in every place, said Prabhupada. Krishna says, Manu Shyanang Sahasrashu. Out of thousands of persons, hardly anyone is interested in perfecting his life. This is Kali Yuga. They walked on, and Srila Prabhupada said no more about it, speaking instead of materialistic household life in which the chief pleasure is sex. Beyond this abominable sex pleasure, he said, was the full satisfaction of spiritual life. Prabhupada walked for half an hour, and then turned around and began walking back, wanting to return to the temple by 7, just in time to greet the deities. Some of the others were flagging from the brisk pace, but Srila Prabhupada strode on, his golden-hued face triumphant in self-realization. Prabhupada began talking about the importance of satsanga, association with devotees, and Dr. Patel quipped, instead of doing satsanga, people go to Kumbh Mela. He laughed as if it were a good joke. But Prabhupada corrected him. No, he said, Kumbh Mela is satsanga. If you go to Kumbh Mela to find a man of knowledge, then your Kumbh Mela is right. Otherwise, yat tirtha buddhihi salilena karhichit sa eva gokhara. If one thinks that this salila, the water, that just to take bath in the water is Kumbh Mela, then he's a gokhara, a cow or an ass. But if he thinks, now there is an assembly of so many saintly persons, let me take advantage of their knowledge, then he is intelligent. Ever since Srila Prabhupada had arrived in Bombay, he had been questioned about the upcoming Kumbh Mela at Allahabad. The Magh Mela occurred every year, but according to astrological calculations, a more auspicious occasion came every 12th year, Kumbh Mela. And every 12th Kumbh Mela, an event that occurred once only in 144 years, was especially auspicious. This year, 1977, was to be such a Mela, and the government was predicting an attendance of 12 million at the confluence of the holy rivers near Allahabad. Srila Prabhupada had said he would go. So, sir, said Dr. Patel, you are going by train to Kumbh Mela? Srila Prabhupada replied that he liked the train, but Dr. Patel said it was not good for health and that it would be a very long ordeal. He also warned Prabhupada that Allahabad would be very cold, and if Prabhupada wanted to leave the Mela early, he would find it very difficult because of the crowds. I'll get one of my friends to get me some water from Allahabad on that day, laughed Dr. Patel. I'll take my bath here. Dr. Patel's friends also mentioned the difficulties of extreme weather and crowds at Allahabad during the Mela. Srila Prabhupada, however, was not swayed. He was well acquainted with Allahabad, having lived there with his family from 1923 to 1936. In 1925, said Prabhupada, I went to the Mela. I remember I was touching the water and it was so pinching that it was cutting your body. But as soon as you actually get a dip, 1, 2, 3, then you immediately come out and it is all right. Prabhupada mentioned the 1928 Mela when he was carrying his young child. I was in the midst of the crowd, he recalled. It was so big that I was afraid that if there was any rush, this child may be finished. But by the grace of Krsna, nothing happened. What is the reason for the Mela? Asked Prabhupada's servant, Hare. Is it something about some drops of nectar from the Mohini Murti? It is actually a religious conference, Prabhupada replied. All the different groups gather in that holy place and they propagate their philosophy there. India is a country of religion. They know spiritual life is more important than this material life. That is India. Now they are diverting their attention to the material. Otherwise, the whole of India is for spiritual life. About 5 minutes before 7, Srila Prabhupada left the beach and walked back to Hare Krishna land. As he approached, he saw the massive 2-story towers of the ISKCON Hotel and the even taller and grander temple domes. The buildings, however, were unfinished. The temple domes had to be covered with marble, and all the buildings needed numerous finishing touches. Prabhupada was anxiously anticipating the opening, but Surabi Maharaj spoke of delays. The opening date, therefore, remained indefinite. Delays had been routine ever since Prabhupada had first tried to purchase the Juhu land from Mr. N in 1971, and obstacles had plagued all his attempts to build. Now, the triumph of installing the deities of Radha Rasa Bihari in one of the most gorgeous temples in India was near. Radha Rasa Bihari were still being worshipped in the temporary shelter the devotees had erected in 1971. But as Prabhupada approached, he could see the magnificent temple structure looming behind that humble shed, proclaiming that soon Rasa Bihari would move into his place. Krishna was blessing the faithful work of Srila Prabhupada and his disciples in Bombay. Although Srila Prabhupada was always traveling, pushing his movement ahead on all fronts, he would regularly return to Bombay. He, more clearly than his disciples, could see when the workers were delaying or even cheating. This time, as before, he would stay for a while, give advice, and then move on. On returning to the ISKCON property, Srila Prabhupada came before the deities and beheld once again the charming beauty that made him sometimes indicate that of all deities, these were the dearest to him. His promise to Radha Rasa Bihari that he would build them a beautiful temple was soon to become a living reality. But he sometimes expressed doubt as to whether he would live to see it. He was now 81 and was bothered by certain persistent illnesses. Of course, the warnings of death were nothing new to Srila Prabhupada, as he had had serious bouts with illness from the beginning of his preaching in the West in 1965. Yet, despite his frequent remarks about retiring, his disciples found it difficult to imagine. Yes, they should by all means complete the work as soon as possible and open the Bombay temple, and yes, they should assure Prabhupada that he could retire and eventually complete his Srimad Bhagavatam. But of course, Krishna would allow him to remain with them and see the completion of at least these 2 projects. Each month, one of Srila Prabhupada's GBC men stayed with him to serve as his secretary and to receive direct training and personal association. The secretary for January 1977 was Rameshwar Swami. Prabhupada was genuinely pleased and enlivened when, early in the morning, Rameshwar entered his room, having flown straight from Los Angeles to Bombay. Prabhupada considered Rameshwar an expert ISKCON manager, especially in printing and distributing Krishna-conscious literature, which was Prabhupada's priority in preaching. Rameshwar Swami inquired as a humble servant before his spiritual master. "Srila Prabhupada," he said, "you look well. Are you feeling well?" Srila Prabhupada laughed. "At the present moment I am feeling well because you are here." Within moments they were discussing ISKCON preaching and management, and Prabhupada advised Rameshwar that the best policy was to use money for printing more books. As soon as money accumulated, Prabhupada warned, it would be taxed and would cause headaches. Better to immediately spend it for printing books. "Print books and sell and spend," said Srila Prabhupada. "Follow this policy and distribute these books. That is our main preaching. Somehow or other we must take our books door to door and distribute. Then our preaching is successful. Anyone who will read will get some benefit, that is sure, because no other such literature is available throughout the whole world. It is a new revolution to the people in general." When Srila Prabhupada asked for news of ISKCON's activities in the West, Rameshwar gave the latest details of how the Krishna consciousness movement in America was being attacked in the courts and press as a psychologically dangerous brainwashing cult. Srila Prabhupada was already aware of this. It was, in fact, the conspiracy he had referred to on his morning walk. An anti-cult movement was now aggressively active and lumping the Hare Krishna movement in with other new movements. Srila Prabhupada was well aware of the deprogrammers' kidnapping of devotees and intensively coercing them, and he had shown that he was not intimidated by their attack. He assured the devotees that Krishna would protect them and that the outcome would ultimately be in their favor. The most significant battle, one that had concerned Srila Prabhupada for several months, was a legal case in New York where the temple president, Adi Keshava Swami, was being charged with employing mind control to keep the devotees in the temple. The parents of 2 adult devotees had pressed charges after hired deprogrammers had failed to break the 2 devotees' determination for Krishna consciousness. In a spirit of anti-cult crusade, an assistant attorney general was prosecuting using all legal and governmental facilities at his disposal. Although civil libertarians were outraged and assured the devotees that the opposition could never win, the implications of the case were fearful nevertheless. The case challenged the very right of the Hare Krishna movement to exist as a bona fide religion, and challenged the right of adult devotees to remain in the movement against the wishes of their parents. Also at issue was whether members of the Hare Krishna movement were members by their own choosing or were being kept in the movement by psychological manipulation, brainwashing. When Srila Prabhupada had first heard of this case, his reply in a letter from Vrindavan had been like a clarion call to battle against the forces of illusion. Quote, "Regarding the point about whether our movement is bona fide, you can use the following arguments. Bhagavad Gita has got so many editions. Our books are older than the Bible. In India, there are millions of Krishna temples. Let the judges and juries read our books and take the opinion of learned scholars and professors. Regarding the second point about the parents' jurisdiction over their children, here are some suggestions. Do the parents like that their children become hippies? Why don't they stop it? Do the parents like that their children become involved in prostitution and intoxication? Why don't they stop this? They are now feeling the weight of this movement. Formerly they thought, these people come and go, but now they see we are staying. Now we have set fire. It will go on. It cannot be stopped. You can bring big fire brigades, but the fire will act. The brainwash books are already there. Even if they stop externally, internally it will go on. Our first-class campaign is book distribution. Go house to house. The real fighting is now. Krishna will give you all protection, so chant Hare Krishna and fight." Unquote. Sitting with Srila Prabhupada in Bombay, Rameshwar Swami informed him that a nationwide committee of professors and theologians had come to the defense of Krishna consciousness in the New York case, and that many lawyers and psychologists were sympathetic. "It is so much mercy from Krishna," said Srila Prabhupada. "Krishna wanted all these things to happen. Krishna himself became important when he killed so many demons, not simply by lying down in the lap of Mother Yashoda. When he was on the lap of Mother Yashoda, from that day he began to kill. Therefore, Krishna established that he was the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So even Krishna was not exempted, what to speak of us. Prahlad Maharaj was not exempted. As soon as you speak of God, this opposition will come. Jesus Christ was crucified. They are so kind, they have not crucified me or my men. But you have to expect all these things. Nityananda Prabhu was personally injured. Haridas Thakur was beaten in 22 bazaars. This task is like that. They are getting everyone in America to ask the question, what is Hare Krishna? Said Rameshwar. That is our gain, said Srila Prabhupada. They are chanting Hare Krishna. We still have to work very hard to defeat them, Rameshwar added. Oh yes, said Prabhupada, that is necessary. You don't sleep. Never did Krishna say to Arjuna, I am your friend. I am God. You sleep here. I'll do everything. No, you must fight. That is wanted. Krishna said, you fight and remember me. Then I'll do everything. This is an opportunity of remembering Krishna always. Prabhupada explained that the greatest shock for the materialists was that the Krishna consciousness movement strongly opposed illicit sex, meat eating, and intoxication. To them, for a person to give up these things was so shocking that they could not accept it was happening because of a genuine spiritual experience. Referring to a previous case, Prabhupada said, in Germany, they also accused that the old man is sitting in Los Angeles and he has engaged all these boys in collecting money for him. They are thinking that way, that I have some mind control power and I have engaged these men. They are getting the money and I am enjoying. Srila Prabhupada recalled how, as early as 1969, when his temple in Los Angeles had purchased a few cars and the number of devotees had begun increasing, the neighbors had become envious. Prabhupada said that he had invited them to also come and live in the Krishna consciousness community, but that their reply had always been no. Prabhupada said that the more the opposition created turmoil, the more Krishna consciousness would become famous. He also reasoned that people were reacting to his very strong preaching. I condemn everyone, he said, that they are all dogs and hogs, and the United Nations I called a pack of barking dogs. It's a fact. And in Chicago I said, all women, you cannot have freedom. So I became a subject of great criticism. Srila Prabhupada concluded his meeting with Rameshwar by saying that the devotees should be very alert and intelligently defend the Krishna consciousness movement. But they should also understand that a higher principle was operating this opposition. This opposition indicated the genuineness of ISKCON. Even Krishna himself was sometimes the center of calamitous activities, such as when he fought with Kaliya and other enemies, or when, as an infant, he fell into the Jamuna River. This is the beauty of Vrindavan, said Prabhupada. When Krishna entered the Jamuna to fight with Kaliya, it was not at all good news for Mother Yashoda, Nanda, the friends, and family. Not at all. Their life was lost. But still, Krishna was the center. This is Vrindavan. In everything, Krishna is in the center. So our situation is just like that. They are making bad propaganda against Krishna. This is the opposition. But I am happy that Krishna is the center. That's all. This is the beauty of this movement. Although we are put into some difficulty, yet the center is Krishna. Srila Prabhupada wanted to travel with a group of his disciples by train to Allahabad, but when a devotee went to buy tickets, he discovered that all seats had long been purchased. There was no chance of making reservations for Allahabad so close to Kumbh Mela. One of Srila Prabhupada's Bombay friends, however, a Mr. Gupta, held a high position with the Central Railway of India, and at Prabhupada's request arranged for a special private car on a train to Allahabad exclusively for Prabhupada and his disciples. Early on the morning of January 11th, Srila Prabhupada embarked on the 24-hour-plus train ride from Bombay to Allahabad. He was sharing his first-class compartment with Rameshwar Swami, Jagadish, and Hari Shori. And even as the train pulled out of the station, Prabhupada was preaching. Rameshwar mentioned a radio show he had recently been on in California, where a Lutheran minister had said Krishna was a sex symbol because he had so many wives and gopis. Even taking it that Krishna is after sex, said Prabhupada, Then if sex is bad, why are they after sex? He says that sex is not for God, Rameshwar replied. Srila Prabhupada was sitting on one side of the compartment and his disciple sat facing him. The loud rattling of the train cars on the rails made conversation sometimes difficult. If sex is not there in God, said Prabhupada, then how has it come? God created everything. So God did not create sex? Srila Prabhupada explained that sex exists both in the material world and in the spiritual. Material sex enjoyment being a perversion of the original, pure sex that exists in the Supreme. Krishna's sexual enjoyment, therefore, is not at all like material sex. It is the exact opposite, in fact, inasmuch as the reality is the opposite of its reflection. You do not understand how to face the opposing party, said Srila Prabhupada. He was in an animated, argumentative mood, enthusiastic to show his disciples how to defeat the opposition. He had sometimes described his own spiritual master as Singha, lion, Guru, and they now saw him in a similar fighting spirit. The more opposition there will be, he said, the more we have to defend. Srila Prabhupada, Rameshwar asked, should we be thinking in our minds that one day the Krishna consciousness movement will have to manage the cities and the nations of the world? Oh yes, Prabhupada replied. Rameshwar asked how the devotees could accomplish such a huge, ambitious project. The management would be simplified, Prabhupada explained, since the citizens would live a pure natural life. Thus the burdensome, sinful aspects of godless government would become unnecessary, and so many complex problems would be solved. He gave the example of self-sufficient agrarian communities where men earn their livelihood locally, but only by education and by experiencing the higher taste of Krishna-conscious pleasure, he said, could the masses become satisfied with simple living. Rameshwar asked if America would become Krishna-conscious by a minority of Krishna-conscious persons becoming powerful in government, while the masses remained as karmis. No, Prabhupada replied. You can introduce Krishna consciousness in such a way that they will become devotees. Suppose in big factories we shall introduce this prasadam distribution and chanting. They will immediately become devotees. Their hearts will be cleansed. Cheto darpana marjanam. But will it be like Russia, pursued Rameshwar, where there is only a small group of people who are in control? No, it is not like that. The quality of the people will be changed. So that means only when the whole mass of population becomes Krishna conscious, Rameshwar suggested, then there will be Krishna conscious government. No, Prabhupada corrected. You can have government when you are in minority, but the mass of people, on account of this quality, they have to see the example. In one sense, these were not immediate concerns, how the devotees would manage the whole world, since the devotees' political influence was at present insignificant. But by answering these questions, Prabhupada was establishing future goals and tactics for the Krishna consciousness movement. Rameshwar Swami, as both a practical manager and a visionary, wanted to know exactly how Srila Prabhupada saw the Krishna conscious world of the future. Srila Prabhupada had the answers, but he indicated that social or political management would be done not by any new formalities, but by pure Krishna consciousness, by changing the hearts of the people through chanting, hearing, studying scripture, and then organizing things on the basic principles of Krishna consciousness. As the train passed beyond the heavily populated Bombay area and entered the countryside, Srila Prabhupada looked out the window, appreciating the scenery. We have come to the open field, he said. How it is nice. And as long as we were passing through the congested areas, hellish, simply hellish. Now here is open space. How it is nice. Entering into a city is so imposing on your consciousness, said Hare Shori. Yes, Prabhupada said. At that point, it is simply rubbish. All papers thrown here and there, and people living in hellish conditions. Now see here how it is open and pleasing. So organize these farm projects. When Rameshwar pointed out that beginning a farm community required a great deal of capital, Prabhupada simply replied that the devotees should show the example and that others would automatically follow the successful pattern. Rameshwar mentioned that in America, although the ISKCON temple presidents were eager to get as many people to join as possible, they found that most people were unable to come up to the required standard. Therefore, farm, said Prabhupada. They have to be encouraged to have a little bit of Krishna consciousness in their own home, Rameshwar suggested. Make their home a temple. Prabhupada disagreed. No, let them go to the farm, New Vrindavan. If the people were disinclined to austerity, he said, then let them come to the farm with their wife and children and live comfortably in their own house. And on the farms they would find plenty of employment. More and more, Prabhupada said, people would become jobless and would be obliged to take shelter of a Krishna-conscious farm community. So we can expect, said Hare, that material conditions are going to become very much worse than at present? They may come or not, said Prabhupada. We don't care. Let us establish an ideal society. Although Prabhupada had left Bombay without taking breakfast, he continued speaking for 4 hours, and then asked Hare to serve lunch. The other devotees left the compartment. Hare carried all Prabhupada's personal effects in 2 small shoulder bags, one with 3 changes of clothing, the other with Prabhupada's plate, bowl, spoon, tiffin, tilak, and mirror. With just these 2 bags, Prabhupada was traveling all over the world. Although he was the head of a wealthy international movement, he kept nothing for himself and traveled light. Whatever donations he collected, whatever profits came from the sale of his books, whatever properties he owned, everything was in the name of ISKCON. And yet, when it came time to eat in the middle of that dusty train ride, his servant was able to produce silver bowls and a tray and an elegant vegetarian feast. Although Prabhupada kept nothing for himself, by Krishna's arrangement, he was well provided for. Srila Prabhupada sat cross-legged on the train seat and pointed to what he wanted from the stainless steel tiffin compartments his servant placed before him. There were sabjis, puris, fruits, and sweets. After Srila Prabhupada chose what he wanted and began to eat, he insisted that Hare also take prasadam. When they finished, Hare distributed the remnants of Prabhupada's meal to the other devotees, and Prabhupada lay down to rest. In the afternoon, more devotees gathered in Prabhupada's small compartment, and he continued preaching, mostly in reply to points Rameshwar Swami raised. In regard to brainwashing, said Rameshwar, they claim that our lifestyle tends to take the devotee and isolate him from the world. Yes, said Prabhupada. We hate to mix with you. No gentleman tries to mix with loafers. Crows will not like to live with the ducks and white swans will not like to live with the crows. That is natural division. Birds of the same feather flock together. Rameshwar. They have a list of 5 or 6 conditions, and they say, if all these conditions are present, then it is a suitable atmosphere for brainwashing. They say we are imposing those conditions on our members. Prabhupada. Yes, we are brainwashing from bad to good. That is our business. We are washing the brain from all rascaldom. Your brain is filled up with all rubbish things, meat-eating, illicit sex, gambling. So we are washing them. Cheto darpana marjanam. Srin vatang swakata, Krishna punya sravana kirtana, hridyanta sto hyab hadrani. Abhadrani means bad things. So the bad things should be washed. Don't you cleanse your home? Don't you cleanse your room? Is that brainwashing? So, if you wash your room very clean, who blames you? But you are so rascal that you charge us. Why are you washing away this garbage? We are washing out the garbage and you are protesting. This is your intelligence. But intelligent men wash away the garbage. That is the law of civilization, to cleanse. That we are doing. According to Vedic civilization, You are actually untouchable. Now we have come to touch you, therefore wash. First you must wash. According to Indian civilization, the dog is untouchable, but he is your best friend, so you are untouchable. Therefore we have to wash your brain. Unless your brain is washed, you cannot understand Krishna. Man is known by his company. You sleep with dog, you eat with dog, your best friend is dog. So, what you are, you must be washed, scrubbed. Rameshwar. But this is their argument, that the standard in America is that you become learned in different fields, science, music, art, and literature. This standard of culture and education is coming from the idea of the Renaissance in Europe. But in our Hare Krishna movement, we are isolating ourselves from these things and simply reading one set of literature, Krishna. Prabhupada. This other is not culture. As soon as you change, that means it is not culture. It is manodharma, mental concoction. Yes, we want to stop your nonsense. That is our mission. Those who are intelligent, they have taken, and you also take. Rameshwar raised the objection that Krishna-conscious children are not prepared to go to public schools and universities, and Srila Prabhupada replied that they were being saved. But what if they want to change later in their life? Asked Rameshwar. They have to become Krishna-conscious from the very beginning, Prabhupada replied. That is the perfection of life. They are perfect from the beginning of their life, and you are going to school in the college, but you are becoming most uncivilized, like cats and dogs, becoming naked and having sex on the street. So what is the value of that education? Stop all these colleges and universities. As soon as they are stopped, it is better for human beings. Rameshwar. They say that if we claim our members are gentlemen, then why is it that they go to the airport and bother so many people? Prabhupada. They are not bothering, they are educating. When a thief is advised, kindly do not become a thief, he takes it as botheration, but it is good advice. Rameshwar. They say it is an invasion of privacy. Every man has the right to think the way he wants. Prabhupada. Yes, therefore I have got the right to think like this and sell books. Rameshwar. So, if I do not want to hear your philosophy, why do you impose it? Prabhupada. It is not imposing. It is good philosophy. We are canvassing. Take it. You will be benefited. You will be benefited. And they are being benefited. Those who are reading, they're being benefited. And why are you advertising big signboards, please come and purchase, Why are you imposing your so-called goodness on us? Why are you doing? Back and forth the battle went, hour after hour, Rameshwar unleashing all the arguments against the Krishna consciousness movement, and Srila Prabhupada defeating them. Prabhupada called the arguments childish and foolish, and he strongly criticized the materialistic demeanor from which they sprang. By Shastra and logic he proved that the non-devotee has no good qualities and is less than an animal because of his lack of God consciousness. Such a person, he said, was in no position to criticize, and such criticisms only showed ignorance of the real purpose of human life. The train stopped in Manmad Jalgaon and Khandwa. Manmad, Jalgaon, and Khandwa, as well as other small towns and junctions, and for Prabhupada and his disciples the day passed quickly in discussion. Prabhupada was absorbed in defending the Krishna consciousness movement. He relished fighting on behalf of Lord Chaitanya. He was speaking, of course, mainly for the benefit of his disciples, but beyond that he was expressing his compassion for all beings and his dedication to the Krishna consciousness movement. They are spending so much for military strength, Prabhupada continued. They are not performing yajna, so how will there be rainfall? There will be warfare, devastation. It is a most rubbish civilization. They are misleading everyone, soul-killing. It is the blind leading the blind. Even when there is difficulty, we have to do this as Krishna's business. Let the dogs bark on, we don't care. If we remain sincere to Krishna, that is our victory. The external result is not so important. We have to act according to the direction of Krishna. Of course, we want to see good results, but even if there is no good result, we don't mind. We must be sincere to Krishna that we have done our best without cheating. That is our duty. As servants, we shall not cheat the master, result or no result. The devotee is not sorry if there is no result. Never mind, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says. I have brought to Benares the Harinam, but here they are all Mayavadis. So, if it is not accepted, all right, I shall take it back. But we must do our best, canvassing work. Please take it. That is our mission. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada speaking trailed off into chanting japa. He would chant for a while and then bring up another point. Rameshwar Swami continued to stir the controversies, anxious to fortify his own convictions and preaching ability by hearing directly from Srila Prabhupada. Very often, Rameshwar said, they will say, it is not religion that we are concerned with, but it is brainwashing and mind control. You are chanting so many hours a day. What is that to you? Prabhupada interrupted sharply. That is my business. Why do you bother yourself? Rameshwar. But you are not giving these young people a chance to think when they chant for so many hours. Prabhupada. You are thieves. You are coming to kidnap. Why shall I give you a chance? They are chanting, but you are charging brainwash. You ask them don't chant. That is your business, but that you cannot do. Rameshwar. But they say that takes away freedom to think. Prabhupada. That is controversy. But you want to take his freedom, and still you are accusing us. Prabhupada said that first there should be a test of what is genuine religion. We say, said Prabhupada, that the law given by God is religion, and it does not matter what name is given to God. If we say Krishna, that does not mean that he is not God. Let's see. If we say Krishna, that does not mean that he is not God. So, before there is a challenge to Krishna consciousness, there should be an assembly discussion and decision as to what is genuine religion. We say that God is one, and whatever he has given as law, that is religion. Rameshwar. But the Christians say that, according to the Bible, if God wanted us to believe in Krishna, he would have told us on Mount Sinai, and he would have told us through Jesus Christ. Jesus said, I am the only way. Prabhupada. That is all right, but Jesus Christ did not explain more to you because you are rascals. You cannot follow even his one instruction, thou shalt not kill. It is not the foolishness of Jesus Christ. But because you are so rascal, you cannot understand him. Therefore, he avoided you rascals. Because whatever he said, you cannot follow. So, what you will understand? Therefore, he stopped speaking. Rameshwar. They also say that you are ruining family life. Prabhupada. That's all right. We are entering Krishna's family. Harishori. But if you are actually followers of God, why are you breaking up families? Shouldn't you have love for everyone? Rameshwar. One of the commandments is that one shall honor thy father and mother. Prabhupada replied that a devotee loves his mother and father by teaching them Krishna consciousness. Harishori. My mother testified to that. When I was at home, she said I was impossible to live with. When she saw me afterwards, I was very nice. Prabhupada. Many. Hayagriva's father and mother also. Rameshwar. My parents think like that too. I could have no relationship with them before, but now that I am a devotee, I actually want to help them. Prabhupada. There are so many fathers and mothers who appreciate. None of our disciples are disrespectful to mother and father. Why? I never said you become disrespectful to your father and mother. At Brahmananda's initiation, his mother was standing there, and I instructed Brahmananda, take the dust of your mother's feet first, then you offer me obeisances. So first of all, he offered his obeisances to his mother. I told him, "You have got good mother. Otherwise, how she has got a son like you." I always say that. I always say like that. I never say disrespect. In a particular case, if the father and mother are demons, he must give up their association. But we never said break up the family. Rameshwar. I think we've used up all our arguments. Prabhupada, still eager to argue. First of all, you said that we are depriving of food. Where is this? Rameshwar. Yes, that is their argument, that we only let devotees eat twice a day, and there is no meat and very little protein. Prabhupada. That depends on him. If he likes to eat that kind of food, you have no right to force. Then you are turning to force. There are different persons, and they like different types of food. If he likes twice a day, why do you insist thrice? That is his choice. Rameshwar. And sleeping only 4 or 5 hours, very little. Prabhupada. Yes, because it is a waste of time. Rameshwar. But this makes the mind very weak. Prabhupada. You rascal, you have nothing to do, you sleep. Napoleon used to sleep for 1 hour, 2 hours. He was such a busy man. So they are so busy in Krishna consciousness. Every great man does not sleep very much. Sleeping is simply a waste of time. If he does not sleep more, it is a sign of greatness. When Rameshwar Swami argued that the opposition has psychologists to testify against us, Prabhupada replied, "We have got our psychologists." After talking all afternoon and into the night, Prabhupada told the devotees to rest. At 10 p.m. he lay down, and Hari Shorty massaged his legs. Actually, Srila Prabhupada concluded, their arguments are not very sound. Therefore, it is simply a plan of Krishna's to help give us some prominence. It will make us more well known. Opposition, he said, was just an opportunity to preach. But to deal properly with the legal cases and other serious opposition, the devotees would have to know how to preach. And they would have to be spiritually strong. He was readying his men, speaking to them day and night on the 24-hour train ride to Allahabad.